I was saying, y'all, your boy Rico from Street Scores. I'm sorry I was gone for so long. I was able to record videos on the first half of my vacation, but the second half I was not able to, but I am fully back. I've been warning y'all, man, when I get back, it's time to hit the ground running, man. The draft is within 2 weeks, less than that. I got to do mock drafts. I got to do film sessions. I got to update y'all on so many different things, but today I just want to do one long Rico report to pretty much catch y'all up on a lot of the things that was happening while I was gone. Of course, we got to talk about this whole Commanders being sold thing. Is it officially sold? Who is it sold to? Because as of right now, there's nothing set in stone, but I want to update y'all on every little piece of information that we know so far and who's actually the leader for buying this team. Also, a potential timeline for when this team is finally officially sold, how long it's going to take for the new owner to step in and to be able to make changes and things like that. And what will they want to change? Are they going to immediately fire Ron Rivera? Things like that. I also want to update y'all on a lot of random things, crazy stats. Chase Young's 5th-year option deadline coming up May 1st, I believe. And Rivera spoke on that whole situation and compared it to Deron Payne, Montez Sweat, all of that type of stuff, and how those guys affect Chase Young's potential contract being kept. And of course, I'm gonna give my opinion on whether or not we should give Chase Young that 5th-year option. Go ahead and pick it up. Also, Rivera spoke on Eric Bieniemy's input for this upcoming draft. How much say will Eric Bieniemy have on the players that we potentially take in less than 2 weeks? That's huge. And then again, just a bunch of really random information that all came out since I've been gone. So one big Rico report. We're gonna try to cover everything. This video may go on for a while. As of right now, I have no idea, but we'll see. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification immediately and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. I know I'm working on a new intro to get Cole Holcomb up out of there, but I'm waiting until after the draft because I want to insert like maybe our first round pick in place of where he was, and then maybe do like a whole new redesign of the intro. I don't want to just take Cole Holcomb out, put a new guy in there, and then call it a day. So just give me some time on the intro, and also make sure you stay tuned for these upcoming live streams, especially this next Sunday, April 23rd, the Sunday before the 2023 NFL draft. That's going to be huge. We're definitely taking calls. That one may last a really long time because everybody's going to want to call in and give their opinions, and I really hope y'all do because that's going to be a really fun draft talk one. We're just going to focus solely on the draft and nothing else really. Really excited about that, so make sure you stay tuned for all of the content. Without further ado, let's get it. All right, so first of all, before we dive into this whole team sale, new ownership, is Dan Snyder really selling the team? Is the team already sold? Who are the top guys right now? Who's still actually in it? Did Josh Harris and the guys officially buy the team? And all of that type of stuff. Before we dive into that, because that's going to take up a lot of this video, I wanted to talk about how much input new offensive coordinator and assistant head coach Eric Bieniemy will have on draft decisions. Because with his title alone, he's already above Jack Del Rio, who's been here for a couple of years. It's literally Ron Rivera, then Eric Bieniemy. Now, in terms of draft decision making, you know, when it comes to Martin Mayhew, Chris Polian, Marty Herney, all of those guys, and who knows, with new ownership coming in potentially before the draft, at the very least, the team being sold on paper, even though it'll have to be voted on and all of that type of stuff, which will definitely happen after the draft at this point, because again, the draft is within 2 weeks and that stuff takes a while. But who knows the exact hierarchy on who makes the decisions and who has the most input when it comes to the draft. But I can definitely assume that Eric Bieniemy has even more than Jack Del Rio. Let's see what Ron Rivera said. He said, quote, "He has a lot of say because it's important. As we go through this process, it's about fit. These guys got to fit what he wants to do as far as a draft pick is concerned. A lot of things that they are going to will be predicated on speed. I think we've got a pretty good corpse of receivers. It's almost like a track meet because these guys are fast, and that's one of the big emphasis that we're looking for is the speed guys. We're looking for guys that can run and those kind of guys that can make an impact and be difference makers in games. We've talked about it, and it's funny because you listen to his philosophy on certain positions and it's very pronounced. In fact, we had a discussion today, and this happened all the way back in April 4th. It was really good, and to me, it was really informative listening to him and listening to his personality too and how confident he was about certain things. And that's great to hear because it sounds like Eric Bieniemy already has a plan. He's not just making things up as he goes along. He already has a plan going into this draft about not only certain players, but specific traits that he wants to add to this team, specifically on the offensive side of the ball, especially. So I'm really excited about that. I mean, Ron Rivera sounds like he was surprised with how much homework Eric Bieniemy has already done on this upcoming draft. So this should bode very well for us. But of course, I mean, Eric Bieniemy is going to have a lot to say. I mean, we had to pretty much take this guy who deserves a head coaching job, in my opinion and a lot of people's opinions, and bring him in as an offensive coordinator. So you got to make him feel like a head coach as much as possible to be able to even get that guy with his experience and with as great of a resume as he has and things like that. So of course he has a big say. Remember, Eric Bieniemy has been holding meetings with other offensive staff members like assistant coaches and things like that, 7 a.m. meetings for the past couple of months since he's been here. He's not playing with y'all. He's not playing. They've been getting busy. This is not a, we'll only do mandatory things. We're going to do the base things. We're only going to do what's asked of us. No, Eric Bieniemy is taking the extra step, the extra mile with everything that he's done so far since he's hit the Commanders, which can only leave us very optimistic about the situation. Rivera also spoke on Eric Bieniemy's input ahead of the draft and the state of the O-line, said, quote, "One of the things that we talked about was shoring up the depth on the offensive line, and we felt we were about to do that through free agency. In fact, that's one of the things that we talked about with Eric, was that now we feel like it's about drafting the best player available and not necessarily just drafting in that position. And we feel that if it is the best player available and it is the best player available at the position we want, that's even better. So we feel really comfortable going into this far," unquote. And that's big. Again, I've been preaching that best player available is a really good draft strategy. Now I feel like we're ultimately going to end up trading back. I feel like that's the most likely scenario because I feel like a lot of the top players at their positions will probably be gone by the time we pick 16th. And at that point, the difference between the 4th best corner in this draft and the 7th or 8th best corner is probably so marginal that you take a different position group at that point in the 1st round and then address corner in the 2nd or 3rd round. So I just feel that way with a lot of position groups. Honestly, if those top guys are gone by the time we pick a 16, you might as well trade back. But if they're not, we're definitely going best player available. And I feel like we're probably going to go best player available throughout the majority of this draft, if not all of it. That's the advantage of doing what you have to do in free agency so you can do what you want to do in the draft. I love that. That's probably my favorite thing that Rivera has done since he's gotten here as a head coach. Doing what you got to do in free agency so you can do what you want to do in the draft and planning on going best player available. That's really huge to me, man. That's how you create a really talented football team. If you keep drafting specifically for your biggest need and it's not even necessarily the best player that's available, then you're just going to end up with a bunch of average guys across the board. But if you just drive best player available and then maybe you have a couple of slight weaknesses here and there across the team, but if you have elite players at several position groups, they can make up for those weaknesses, and then eventually those weaknesses will get fixed with the best player available over the course of time. And now you have an elite team across the board, or at the very least a very good team across the board, rather than just a bunch of average guys that you just took because, man, we really need a this right now. I understand going team needs if you already have like a Super Bowl contender and you just really need to just at least add a slight upgrade to a certain position group to take you over the top. But right now we're not that. Go best player available and let's just add talent to this team and get better all across the board. All right, so took a little bit longer to break that down than I expected. So let's go ahead and get to whether this team is sold or not, who are the top bidders, and all of the information that we know so far. Well, as of right now, and this is coming from Teddy Schleifer, who's arguably been one of the most trustworthy news sources when it comes to any Jeff Bezos updates. And he said Jeff Bezos is not in the bidding process for the Washington Commanders, is not currently planning to make a bid for the team. So it sounds like he's done already. Even without this whole non-exclusive agreement that Josh Harris and company have made with Dan Snyder for them to buy the team, that again, I want to emphasize has not officially gone down. Nothing is set in stone as of right now, but we'll see. But even without that, Jeff Bezos, it looks like he's out of the running. I mean, it was already reported months ago that he was interested in buying an NFL team, but it didn't necessarily have to be the Commanders. There were reports that he was also interested in buying the Seahawks at some point. So it sounds like Jeff Bezos will not buy the Commanders, and we could pretty much just go ahead and lay all of that to rest. And it's not because Dan Snyder refuses to, because through multiple trustworthy sources, it's already been reported that Dan Snyder is willing to sell to Jeff Bezos, but it's just like Jeff Bezos just simply doesn't want to even enter the sweepstakes. Maybe the bid got too high and he just doesn't want to spend that much money. I don't know what the reason is, but he's already out of the running pretty much. We can go ahead and accept the fact there is no Jeff Bezos buying the Commanders at all. Even though it feels weird to say that because we just feel like Josh Harris already bought the group, so why are we even talking about who can and cannot still buy the group? But it still matters, man. If Jeff Bezos wanted to buy this team, he would for sure be in the running, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up buying it if he were still interested. But again, he's not interested. But hey, man, April 13th, the day the internet went crazy, Adam Schefter tweeted the Josh Harris group has reached a preliminary agreement to buy the Commanders from Dan Snyder for $6.05 billion per sources. It is not exclusive. The deal is not signed. The group led by Steve Apostolopoulos is still involved in the process. So apparently, according to trustworthy sources, Steve A from Canada is still in the running. And then Mark Mass came out and said Josh Harris's group reaches an unsigned, non-exclusive tentative agreement to purchase the Commanders from Dan Snyder for $6.05 billion. The deal must be finalized and approved by NFL owners. So remember that timeline-wise, it's not like pen to paper Josh Harris buys the Commanders from Dan Snyder or Magic Johnson, Mitchell Rales, and all of those guys, and it's just immediately his team. The owners are very, very, very likely to go ahead and approve of it, but there's still a process. They have to sit down, have a meeting, and approve of it before it's official. So there's a lot of things to this. It's not like Josh Harris just buys the team and the Commanders are his the next day, not even within a week, which again we'll get to a little later. But Darren M. Haynes is also reporting from WUSA 9. Here are 3 facts about Brian Davis's $7 billion bid to buy the Commanders. First of all, $7 billion is a serious bid. That's an entire $1 billion more than what Josh Harris and those guys bid on the team. That they came to an agreement with Dan Snyder to buy the team. Again, Dan Snyder's going to sell to the highest bidder. So if this Brian Davis thing is serious, then he's far more likely to be the owner than Josh Harris and those guys. I just still don't believe that Brian Davis has this much money, because where is it coming from? Because he's not even a billionaire himself, and I've been saying if there's a big group of investors that are willing to put forward $7 billion behind Brian Davis, why don't they just do it themselves? Why do they need Brian Davis to do it? And then also, most importantly, Brian Davis has shown through previous attempted acquisitions of professional franchises that he's not trustworthy. When it's time to pay the bill, he's not ready to pay up and things fall through. He's been getting sued by Dennis Rodman and all kinds of other people. So I'm not a big fan of this whole Brian Davis thing anyway. So I'm not even sure how much to believe in this $7 billion bid, because again, he's not a billionaire, so who's putting all this money behind him, and why do they feel like they need him to be the face when they can just buy the Commanders themselves? Also, Darren M. Haynes said the second point is the Commanders have received the $7 billion bid and financial, so apparently it's real, but I'm just not getting it. This sounds so fishy to me. And then the third point, Bank of America will now do their job to see where Brian Davis is getting the $7 billion, which is my point. Where is the $7 billion coming from? So apparently it's Josh Harris and his group, including Magic Johnson, Mitchell Rales, and all of those guys. You still have Steve A from Canada. And apparently you have Brian Davis with the highest bid out of everybody, $1 billion more than Josh Harris, who just came to a non-exclusive agreement with Dan Snyder himself. This is chaotic, man. The team is getting sold. We know that. Dan Snyder's giving up the team. You don't have to worry about whether or not the team is getting sold. At this point, we just care about who and when. So rest assured, the team is done. You don't have to worry about that. It's gone. Snyder's gone, which is the most important part and the part that we all need to be celebrating. I don't know what y'all doing up in the DMV. I don't know if y'all gonna hold a parade or a big tailgate, a big go-go party. I know y'all love y'all go-go and stuff like that. I might have to pull up for that one, man. Whatever y'all got going on to celebrate Snyder leaving, hey, man, I might have to fly out or something. Then AJ Perez, who, you know, we're not exactly sure how much we could trust his sources, but he said Josh Harris was among the first names to emerge when the Washington Commanders went on the market back in November. Josh Harris's group remains on track to finalize its tentative $6.05 billion deal to purchase the Commanders, sources told at FOS tonight. And that was April 14th, so that's some of the more recent news. A lot of the things we've already been talking about in this video happened further back than this. So one of the more recent news updates is this one, saying that it looks like Josh Harris will end up just getting the team and everything else doesn't really matter. He also went on to tweet that not doubting Darren M. Hayes' reporting on the $7 billion bid, but you have to wonder why someone needs to bid $1 billion more than Harris anyway just to get the team. That is a good point. Why do they have to go a whole $1 billion more? Why not just, I mean, if Josh Harris and those guys agreed to $6.05 billion with Dan Snyder, why not go $6.1 billion? Or if you really want to be that dramatic, go $6.5 billion. But why a whole extra billion more? that is a little fishy. And again, where is Brian Davis even getting his money? I'm still confused about that situation. So also Dove Kleeman, as of today, like just an hour ago, tweeted update: the sale of the Commanders to Josh Harris for $6.05 billion might not be finalized as previously reported. A $7 billion cash offer by DC native Brian Davis was made to buy the team, which would make him the NFL's first black owner, which is really interesting because Magic Johnson will be a minority owner, but then again, Brian Davis will be a minority owner as well because he doesn't have $1 billion to his name. So I'm still confused about this $7 billion behind him. Where is this coming from? Is this blood money? Where are we getting this money, man? Thank you, Bank of America, for looking into this, because it sounds like the $7 billion bid has officially been submitted. Like Dan Snyder has seen the $7 billion offer and it's real. But Bank of America, just like me and a lot of us out here, are like, wait, where are y'all getting $7 billion from? So that's wild in itself. But we'll see. Dove Kleeman is saying that as of today, we don't know. Either way, Dan Snyder wins because remember, he bought the team for $800 million back in 1999. Dan Snyder has been the owner of the Commanders for pretty much my entire life. I don't know any other way. I didn't even know what football was, I don't think, yet when he bought this team. So this is all I know, man. But it's just really interesting that he bought it for $800 million and he's gonna sell it for at the very least $6 billion. That return of investment is crazy. And also, if you think about it, with us only having 2 playoff wins since he's been our owner, he's getting paid $3 billion per playoff win. How? Why is this franchise worth this much still? It's just because of the history of it, us winning Super Bowls, the 80s, early 90s. And then also, a lot of people sleep on the DMV area. I mean, especially outside of the DMV area, like people from down south, like Atlanta, people in New York. I mean, a lot of people don't even know what the DMV stands for. When you say DMV, they think, oh, the car place. You know what I'm saying? They don't think DC, Maryland, Virginia. And I keep trying to tell people, man, DC alone should be a top 5, at the very least top 10 market in America, as far as like fan base goes and land value and all of that type of stuff. If the Commanders start going crazy, DC is going to be an undisputed top 5 market in America. It's a sleeping giant that once new ownership takes over, good ownership takes over, and we start winning again like we were in the 80s and early 90s, it's gonna get serious. I keep trying to tell people that's not from the DMV area, man, that DC, stop sleeping. If the Commanders, Washington football team, Redskins, whatever you want to call them, get back on track, it's up. Not even just football, but the entire area, it's up, man, I'm telling you. So that's why Dan Snyder, even though he's done nothing with this team really positively at all since buying it for $800 million, now he's selling it for $6 billion. It's not because of him. It's because the DMV is a very extremely underrated market, and it's just the history of the franchise. And a lot of people believe that this team could potentially get back to that if handled well. And also our fan base, even though a lot of people jumped ship because they were just tired of Dan Snyder, that's another sleeping giant. The Washington fan base is crazy. A lot of people forget that because we've just been so average and just straight butt for so long. But if the Commanders get back 5, it's really up for the fan base as well. We're one of the deepest fan bases, not only across America, but around the entire planet. Like, if we're talking Brazil, Germany, Europe, Asia, Africa, like we're literally everywhere. Not every fan base can say that. And especially not every sorry team's fan base can say that. We might be the most global sorry team fan base doing it. So once we get right, we're going to be a lot deeper out here than a lot of people think. I'm telling you, even our own fans don't believe how deep we should be. But I'm telling you, Commanders start getting right, it's about to be fans everywhere. Even with me being in Atlanta, I see Commanders, Redskins, logos, colors, license plates, all of that type of stuff all around here. I just don't see merch. If I want to buy like a jersey or a hat or a sweater or something, I gotta go online. I'm not just gonna be able to just walk into a Walmart and find something. That's impossible. It's even hard enough to go in Lids and find a Commanders or Redskins hat there, let alone like a random Ross or Walmart. So that's what we don't have, but again, winning can fix that. But fan base wise, a lot of people lying dormant right now, where if the Commanders get their stuff together, Sam Howell goes out here and balls out under Eric Bieniemy, and the new ownership does right by us, we could become one of those top annoying in your face fan bases again, just like Bears, the Cowboys, obviously, like the Packers, a lot of these teams, Steelers, where people have never even seen the DMV in their life, never touched DC, Maryland, Virginia's soil, but they're Commanders fans because the team is just that global and that widespread. I'm telling you, man, it's a sleeping giant. And JP Finley brings up a good point with his tweet, still settling in that Snyder has at least a non-exclusive agreement in place, and perhaps most importantly, with the buyer and Josh Harris, that would almost certainly get NFL approval and has significant pro sports experience. And that's a great point. Again, the advantage to Josh Harris, first of all, he's from the DMV area, along with Mitchell Rales, who's in on it, and then Magic Johnson is going to provide a lot of non-monetary benefits to being an additional owner with that group as well, which we're going to get to a little later. But also, he's trustworthy enough. He's shown that he could take an organization, a professional franchise in different sports too, basketball, hockey, whatever, take what they used to be and make them better as a franchise. Now with Dan Snyder, it's really not hard to do that, but it still leaves me with optimism to see what he's done with other professional franchises and what he could potentially do with us, especially with the group that he has, Mitchell Rales, Magic Johnson, all of these guys included. We're going to talk about other people that may be included as well soon coming up. And then also, again, he's so trustworthy that the owners will pretty much automatically vote him in. There will be no later hump, because every time it seems like we take 3 steps forward, feels like we take 4 steps back, or just some random wall, some random obstacle, a barrier gets in the way. And Brian Davis buys the team for $7 billion. Then for some odd, crazy reason, we get to the owners having a vote on it and they vote no. You know what I'm saying? And that would set us right back to, oh, Dan Snyder's our owner still. But Josh Harris, you know for pretty much a fact, almost 100% fact, that if he becomes the one that Dan Snyder sells the team to, he's going to get approved by the NFL owners, and we could just move on and we're done. We put everything behind us. We don't have to worry about it. We don't even have to talk about it anymore. So he provides a lot of advantages. Now it's being reported by the same Darren E. Hames, and this was tweeted by Dove Clayman, who's also a trustworthy source, that a quote came from the video saying, "We can confirm that the first $1 billion could be released to Dan Snyder within 24 hours, and then the rest of the $6 billion in a week. And of course, it will set an NFL record for most expensive sale in global sports history." Now, there is a soccer team coming up somewhere, I believe in Europe or something like that, that will eventually beat us out in due time. But the day that the Commanders are officially sold is the most expensive sale of any professional franchise in the entire world, which is really interesting. But most importantly from this is that it sounds like the ball is rolling. Dan Snyder could end up receiving $1 billion within 24 hours, and then the rest of the payment within a week. So it sounds like we're moving forward with Josh Harris. That's what it sounds like. This tweet came out 11:34 a.m. today. This is the most recent tweet that I'm reading to y'all today. Like, the most recent news that we're gonna talk about throughout this entire video is that tweet. So it sounds like Josh Harris got the thing going. We'll see what's going on. Also, in really random news, but it kind of puts things into perspective why this has been taking so long, AJ Perez tweeted 5 days ago, "The billionaires seeking to purchase the Washington Commanders have had to maneuver around a lending landscape where interest rates sit at levels not seen since 2007. Sources tell @FOS. That has impacted how the process is unfolded. So the reason things have been taking so long is because interest rates are higher than they've been since at the very least 2007. And then again, this is historically the largest, most valuable sale of a franchise, well, on their end, purchase of a professional franchise in the history of all sports in the entire world. So not only did they have to come up with that crazy amount of money, but then also when it comes to lending and investors and things like that, interest rates are crazy as well. So that's what's been holding us back a little bit. It hasn't necessarily just been Dan Snyder being difficult, even though I'm pretty sure he has been. And then Jeff Bezos dipping his toe in, taking his toe out, dipping his toe in, taking his toe out, with him having the most money and of course intriguing Dan Snyder every time he dips his toe in just to get pump faked. So I mean, there are a lot of factors that led to how long this is taking and why this team will not officially be sold and handed over to Josh Harrison guys until after the draft. But that's one of the major ones that a lot of people may not have noticed. Also, shouts out to John Kahn for tweeting this information 3 days ago. As others have reported, the Harris Group has reached an agreement to buy the Commanders for $6.05 billion. Not signed yet. That's an important aspect, and it's not an exclusive situation to Steve A, who still has a shot. But certainly for Harris's group, it's a major step forward. If all goes well, Harris will be the next owner, or at least he'll be the one the league votes on at their May meetings. Then it will be done. So the NFL owners will have a meeting in May to vote on the new owner, and things should be in place for them to just go ahead and handle that by then. One thing to note here, and this is what I was foreshadowing earlier as far as a potential timeline, late May is the fastest it will be voted upon. The fastest, the soonest. Denver took a month and a half to go through the vetting process last summer after the team was sold. So it's not for certain it will be voted in May, but just to let you know, that's the earliest. So the earliest this thing can be voted on and officially handed over to whoever buys the team, more than likely Josh Harris, is May. Also, in really random news, NFL owners are upset with the Commanders' $6 billion sales price. So I guess they were hoping it was more, which is why a lot of the owners were really hoping that Jeff Bezos will buy the team because he will offer more money than everybody else. The NFL owners apparently were hoping that Snyder would sell the team closer to $7 billion than $6 billion. It would be 6 point something billion, but they were hoping it would be closer to 7, where you could round up to 7 rather than round down to 6. So, hey man, it is what it is. I'm just happy it's done. And again, just to let you know, for the owners vote thing, for whoever's buying the franchise, for it to be voted yes by the owners, 75% of the NFL voters have to vote and approve of the sale for it to happen. Not 51%, not more than half, 75% or more. And then moving on in random news as far as the team sale goes, NBA superstar and longtime Washington Commanders super fan Kevin Durant wants to join the ownership group as an investor. And we heard that a while ago when it came to Jeff Bezos and Jay-Z teaming up potentially. KD wanted to be a part of that. And now that this whole Josh Harris, Mitchell Rails, and Magic Johnson thing is a real thing, KD said he wants in on that as well. Hey man, let KD in there, man. I don't care how little he's contributing potentially. Let him hold something. Let him hold a piece of that. Even if it's just like 1% or something, or even less. Let him in on the meetings when y'all are making decisions for what the team should do. At least as an extra voice. Not a primary contributor or the guy that gets the last say on anything. Of course not that, but at least let his voice be heard, because he's a real fan that's really tapped in with fans, age-wise, demographic-wise, and I feel like he would only do right by the Commanders with his input if they allow him to have any. Also, former DC council member Jack Evans said he and other officials came close to an agreement with Snyder to build a copy of RFK Stadium in the city in 2018, but the deal fell apart when the Trump administration didn't grant the city authority over the land. And there's a whole article by Jack Russell on the Washington Post if you really want to dive into that, but just know that they were close to doing it in 2018 and Trump basically said nah. Also, really random, and it may not necessarily matter as much as I hope it does. And of course, I really hope Sam Howell goes out there and balls out. But Caleb Williams, of course, being from the DMV area, is so happy that the Commanders are officially being sold. When the news came out that Dan Snyder had come to an agreement with Josh Harris and his group to sell the team for $6 billion, Caleb Williams was super excited and put thank you in all caps on his Instagram stories and things like that. So that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to end up drafting Caleb Williams to the Commanders in the 2024 draft, who could potentially be the next Pat Mahomes. But it is really interesting to see that. And you got to remember, even though he plays for USC, he is from DC. And so, of course, he's still a big Commanders fan and hopes that the team does really well. Does that automatically mean that he'll be the quarterback for the team? Definitely not. And again, I really hope Sam Howell works out to where we don't even have to use a first-round pick on quarterback again and use that first-round pick to fix other parts of the team or to upgrade other parts of the team. But, hey, man, Caleb Williams on the Commanders sounds so amazing. And then also, I want to pose a question to y'all in the comments. I know a lot of people were saying that until Dan Snyder comes back, they're not watching the games, they're not going to games, they're not buying any jerseys, any merch, not supporting the team in any way. They may watch us YouTube. I hear that a lot. Like, I'll watch your YouTube videos, Rico. I'll support you, but I'm not supporting this team. So now that Dan Snyder is officially gone, are y'all coming back? I know some people became kind of Ravens fans. Some people just drop football, period. Like, just don't watch the sport because they can't even pick a second team. If they can't watch the Redskins football team, Commanders, they just don't want to watch anything. So no matter the reason, no matter the extent, now that Dan Snyder is gone, is everybody coming back, or do you have to see the team win first, like to get a playoff win, make the playoffs, all that type of stuff? Or is it literally just Dan Snyder's gone, we're all back? I know some people are still really upset about the name Redskins, and at this point you just got to let that go, because that's never going away. I'm sorry. So is Dan Snyder being gone enough, even if you hate the name, for you to come back? And then of course there's the element that Magic Johnson probably helps. A lot of people love Magic Johnson, especially people of a certain age. I'm too young to truly understand Magic Johnson's impact in first person. I never saw him play at an NBA game live. I wasn't old enough. But even just what he's done for the Dodgers and really anywhere he's been except for the Lakers, he's had a positive impact. So does Magic Johnson also increase your faith in this team and make you more optimistic and make you want to return to the team if you haven't supported them for the past few years? And then Rivera even talked about it. He said there's a whole lot of positive vibes around the Commanders with this Snyder sale right now. Shouts out to John Com of ESPN. He wrote an article. He said Ron Rivera hadn't coached the game with the Washington Commanders before everything changed. The team went through a name change, followed a scandal over allegations of a toxic workplace culture, followed by Rivera being diagnosed with cancer. That's why dealing with the pending sale isn't about to phase him. I mean, yeah, after you've been through all of that, the sale of the team is the least of your worries, honestly. He said, quote, "It's par for the course, man. It's what we deal with. It's what I've dealt with. It's what our organization has dealt with the last 3.5 years. The unfortunate part of the game is that things change and you've got to be able to adapt and go forward." Unquote. It was Jason Wright, not Ron Rivera, that said that there's nothing but upside on the other side of this. There will be growth in suite sales, growth in sponsorship sales, because there are people choosing not to do business that will choose to do business with us now. Again, my point again, just like the fan base, it's not just the fan. There were a lot of people that hate Dan Snyder that aren't even fans of not only the Commanders but fans of NFL at all. Just people with money that want to make money, and they're just like, we hate Dan Snyder so much, I don't even want to make money with that guy. And so now this team is just gonna have a completely new feel to it, a completely new destiny. Everything should be better. Sales in every way, merch, everything, tickets, investments are gonna go way up. And again, bringing over somebody like Magic Johnson to be one of the faces of the sale, of the purchase, is going to be huge because he's not contributing a lot of money. Josh Harris and Mitchell Rails pretty much got that themselves, and whoever else may be helping in. Magic Johnson's more so being brought in as a face and maybe a potential decision maker as well. But at the end of the day, Josh Harris has the final say. He's the majority owner easily by himself. He's not a dictator. It's not his team alone, but it's definitely him and then everybody else under him. And then now we're on to the random part of the Rico report. We're done with team sale. We're done with Eric Bieniemy's input on the draft. We're just going to talk about a lot of random stuff. Let's start with Chase Young. First of all, Commanders head coach Ron Rivera knows that health will play a big factor in the team picking up the fifth-year option on defensive end Chase Young. He said, quote, "That's the thing that will drive a big part of the conversation. As we continue to work through this and talk about it, it will be about seeing him and watching him." Again, we get started April 17th, so we'll continue to work through these things. Talk to the doctors, talk to the trainers, strength and medical, and just kind of get a feel for where he is. Then we'll be able to make a decision and we'll go from there. Unquote. Then the Athletic's Ben Standig notes that there are major implications for the Commanders no matter what they decide to do with Young, as they juggle having 4 former first-round picks starting on defensive line in defensive tackle Jonathan Allen, defensive tackle Deron Payne, and defensive end Montez Sweat. Allen and Payne have already signed major extensions, with Allen inking an $18 million per year deal in 2021 and Payne signing for $22.5 million this offseason per year. Sweat's playing out the final year of his deal on a 5th-year option and is set to be an unrestricted free agent in 2024. If the Commanders decline Young's $17.45 million 5th-year option for 2024, he will be in a contract year in 2023 as well. So if we decline Chase Young's 5th-year option, both him and Montez Sweat are unrestricted free agents going into 2024, and that scares me. That's why league sources tell Standig other teams are keeping an eye on the Commanders in case they decide they can't keep all 4 and make either Sweat or Young available, rather than potentially losing them for nothing but a potential comp pick in 2024. So that's noteworthy. Other teams are looking at the Commanders like, all right, which one y'all gonna lose? Because we'll gladly take one of them if you don't want to pay them or if you can't pay them. But hey, man, that's the advantage of having a potentially really good quarterback on a rookie contract. Maybe we could, because Sam Howell's eating up no cap space, but we'll see how that goes. If Washington declined Young's option because of concerns about his knee injury or money, they'd only have one franchise tag to use to keep either Sweat or Young in 2024 at a sum of more than $24 million. Standig notes most around the league think it will be a major challenge for Washington to keep all 4 players together on second contracts, though they've made an effort to do so for as long as possible by keeping Payne this offseason. One former GM told Standig they were surprised the Commanders extended Payne after already extending Allen, as teams usually prioritize edge rushers over defensive tackles, and that's a good point. The same person did say Payne and Allen are better players than Sweat and Young. Cannot pay all 4. Sweat is my next target. So he's saying pay Sweat over Chase Young. Interesting. Former Washington front office exec J.I. Housel, who worked with the salary cap, told Standig he would pick up Young's option because of the upside and the savings compared to the franchise tag. Then he looked to move on from Allen at some point after 2023. I don't see a scenario, or at least a long-term scenario, where all four are on second contracts in Washington. So he's saying pick up Chase Young's fifth-year option, pay Montez Sweat, keep Deron Payne, let Allen go after 2023. Wow. And then Standig mentions at least one team he's talked to thinks the Commanders will draft another edge rusher, perhaps with a high pick in this upcoming draft, given the situation with Sweat and Young. Crazy news all up and down. I don't even really know where to start, but really my take, I say you pick up Chase Young's fifth-year option, because what he would cost you on that fifth-year option is millions less than what you would have to pay him on a franchise tag if he balls out this year, and then you end up franchise tagging him next year. And again, you can only franchise tag Chase Young or Montez Sweat. You can't franchise tag both of them. So if you franchise tag Chase Young, you still got to pay Montez Sweat. But if at the very least Chase Young is on a fifth-year option next year, you can focus on paying Montez Sweat, worry about Chase Young in the 2025 offseason. And again, even ignoring the future, even ignoring 2025 and beyond, Chase Young playing on his fifth-year option is way cheaper than paying him on a next big contract if he balls out the way that we hope to this season, or him even playing on a franchise tag because we're struggling to keep him anyway. That's literally the cheapest option, other than of course just letting him go. So I say pick up the fifth-year option in my personal opinion, but we'll see how this goes. Also, speaking of Chase Young, in shoe news, Chase Young is the first ambassador for Clutch Athletics by New Balance, a new sportswear brand from Rich Paul. This foray into football gear will include developing a new football cleat with Chase Young helping to design it. And I'm surprised that he's still getting all of this, even though he hasn't done much since being Rookie of the Year. And I'm a big believer in Chase Young, and I really hope he goes out there and balls out, but it's still just surprising that up to this point with what he's done, that he's getting deals through Clutch Athletics for New Balance to create his own shoe and things like that. That is crazy. But I'm really happy for him. Of course, New Balance, that's more of a DMV thing for y'all. That's not my thing, but I'm gonna support it. If I end up buying the shoe, I'll just keep it somewhere. But will I plan on wearing them? Whoo boy. Even though my mom will bring up the fact that I have pictures of little me, like 5-6 years old, in every color of New Balance imaginable, back when I still lived in Maryland. But that's more of a y'all thing. That's not really an Atlanta thing, a Southern thing. But I'm still really happy because I know how big I am on culture and people having their own culture. And the fact that Chase Young is from the DMV and now he has a New Balance signature shoe, that's amazing to me. I'm a huge fan of that because that's y'all culture. DMV, New Balance, that's y'all thing. So I'm pretty sure Chase Young did backflips when he heard that, if he physically can at this point. I mean, I hope he can. He should be healthy enough at this point. I don't think he had any setbacks. Moving on, Monday, April 17th, as in tomorrow, is the first day of phase 1 off-season activities for the Commanders. So regardless of what's going on with the sale, actual players will be back at the facilities. And I'm just really excited about that alone because we'll be hearing about what's going on. Eric Bieniemy's coaching style. Again, he's been getting guys together, like just coaching staff, no players involved, but just coaching staff, like offensive lines coach. Well, we technically don't have one right now. We're still waiting to fill that. But tight ends coach, running backs coaches, wide receivers coaches, all of those guys, quality control coaches, everybody that deals with the offense that's a coach or a front office member. Eric Bieniemy has been making them show up at 7 a.m. for meetings for weeks now, for months now. So I'm really excited to see what it's going to look like when players are involved as well. But of course, with phase 1, it consists of the first 2 weeks of the program, with activities only being limited to meetings, strength and conditioning, and physical rehabilitation. That's it. There's no practices. There's no out there scrimmaging or anything like that. It's meetings, strength and conditioning, probably watching a lot of film, and physical rehabilitation. I don't know if Chase Young even counts as physical rehabilitation because I think he's technically healthy right now, but we'll see. Also, Zach Selby spoke with Commanders' new wide receivers coach Bobby Ingram about a variety of topics. If you want to go check that out, just go follow his Twitter, Zach Selby WC, ZACHSELBY WC on Twitter. And it's a nice thread of a lot of the highlights from what happened. But one One of the most interesting things for me is that Ingram wants to work with wide receivers that want the ball in their hands. That's natural. But he also wants his players to understand that it's all about the greater good of the team. That's where unselfishness comes in. He wants a group of players who are for each other and compete. And he also emphasized the desire to maximize the talent at wide receiver. He noted that in Kansas City, the offense was able to utilize every receiver and all of the skills that they had. He wants to make sure they can move players around and give them a chance to make plays and help the team win games, and that's huge. That's really similar to Eric Bieniemy's message with his press conference, that he wants to utilize everybody. You got to also throw Antonio Gibson in there as well. Like, these guys are going to get the ball. Playmakers are getting the ball. There's no more of the Terry McLaurin was only targeted 1 time and a half or 2 times or 3 times throughout the entire game. That's dead. Eric Bieniemy is getting the ball into his playmakers' hands. I'm really excited about that. And then again, also, Bobby Ingram spoke about how the offensive staff has had meetings at 7 a.m. and they're focused on a lot of minor details like splits, depth of route, adjustments in the routes, protections, all of that type of stuff. I mean, they are working out every little detail, all of the nuanced things. Eric Bieniemy is going to change this franchise for the better because of small attention to detail things like that, and just a sense of purpose and we gotta do this right type of thing. 7 a.m. meetings already? I'm pretty sure most teams haven't even thought about meeting together for really anything outside of draft strategy. Eric Bieniemy's out here working through route concepts and things like that with the coaching staff right now. Especially since, I mean, we don't have Travis Kelce, but if we're just isolating the receiver group alone, he's upgrading going from Kansas City to Washington. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he handles that new responsibility with all of these talented receivers in this group who all want their miles fed. And again, those were just some of the highlights from the thread. You can go check out the rest of it if you want to. Also, Terry McLaurin, shouts out to Pro Football Focus Fantasy. They pointed out that he has 42 contested catches over the last 2 seasons. That's first in the NFL, point blank. Also, shouts out to Nikki Javala for tweeting this out from sportsinfo_SIS. It's a clear snapshot of the Commanders 2022 defense, and it's all of the percentages and percentage ranks across the NFL in which we played base defense, nickel, dime plus, gap run, zone, man, zone, 3 rushers, 4 rushers, 5 rushers, 6+ rushers, pressure percentage, all of that type of stuff. So if you want to go check that out, I have it on the screen right now as you can see, but if you want to go check it out longer, Nikki Javala tweeted it back in April 6th at 4:26 p.m. Again, I've been going for a while and I've just been seeing random things, keeping it, and I'm like, when I do a video, I'm just gonna put all this information out there at once. Also, Commanders offensive tackle Andrew Wiley's cap numbers have officially come out. 2023, he's only a $4.16 million cap hit. Next year, he's a $9.41 million cap hit. And in 2025, he's a $10.41 million cap hit. And as a starting anything, especially right tackle, that's extremely cheap for a starter, especially a good quality starter. So, hey, I'm perfectly fine with that. Those are some great numbers right there. Also, speaking of that, a cap space update as of April 5th, we have $2,423,105,000 worth of cap space, which is only more than the New York Giants, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Minnesota Vikings. We are 29th in cap space in the NFL, and as of right now, we don't even have enough cap space to pay our draft class. So some people are going to start getting cut. Contracts are going to get restructured. Guys are going to get cut and or traded before this draft or during this draft because, again, we literally don't even have cap space enough to pay our upcoming draft class. Also, I'm not sure if a lot of y'all have heard, but DC Attorney General Brian Schwab announced his office reached a settlement with Pro Football Inc., which owns the Commanders, for failing to return ticket deposits to district fans. The team will pay a $425,000 fine to DC and refund the remaining $200,000 deposits. The conditions of the settlement also include the team having to conduct public record searches for recent contact info and notifying fans by letter, phone call, and email. So, of course, thank goodness Dan Snyder's gone, but a lot of his stink is still around the organization. We're still dealing with things, even though this team is unofficially sold right now, still dealing with a lot of the repercussions with him being our owner for so long. And it's just little petty stuff like that. And then very extremely random, I know none of y'all were looking for this, but I don't care. It's a Rico report. We're talking about everything. Tight end Eli Wolf has officially announced that he retired. He's a Georgia tight end, but even as a diehard Georgia fan, I wasn't a big fan of his, even while he was at Georgia, and definitely not for my Commanders. Undrafted free agent coming out of Georgia for the Ravens back in 2020 has bounced around Colts, Packers, us. Didn't even make the 53-man roster last year, but he's officially decided that he's going to retire. Don't want to spend too much time on that, but hey, man, shouts out to you, man, because he's made more money in the NFL than I have. So, hey, man, get your money and dip if it's just not for you, man. I'm a big fan of that for sure. Do your thing. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video, this Rico report. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Eric Bieniemy's input on the draft, potentially some of our draft priorities, of course, all of this team sale stuff, all of the random stuff we discussed afterwards, like Chase Young's 5th-year option, the random stats I gave you, Andrew Wiley's cap hit numbers, literally everything we talked about in this video. I hope as you were listening, you were writing down all of the major points that you may want to talk about or ask about in the comment section, because this was a long video, but I just felt like it was overdue. And I know I always hear from a lot of y'all all of the time that y'all do like the longer videos, and what better time to do a longer video than after I've been gone for more than a week. So hey, man, I appreciate all of y'all support. I've been seeing y'all in the comment section asking where I was at and if I'm okay and things like that, so I've been keeping track. Appreciate all of the support, man. And hey, man, we right back to it, to being consistent. I'm no longer on vacation, won't go on vacation for a while now. So hey, man, it's 2-3 videos a day time right now. Draft, mock drafts, film sessions, everything. So stay tuned. Of course, I appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors. Names you see scrolling on the screen right now. Please leave a like on this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. I know you learned at least one thing. I know at the very least I caught you off guard with that Eli Wolf retiring thing. So by law, you're obligated to leave a like on this video on the way out, because at the very least you didn't know that. Something. So, man, I appreciate y'all for real, though, and I'm going to catch y'all later. I'm out. I'm back, man.